Bubby, guess who won the election? Guess who's our new president?
Who?
Guess who the president is?
Who?
Trump.
Oh! Oh my God! Oh my God! We won! Yes! We won! We won! We won! Yes! We won! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Ah! Yes! We won! Dad! We won! Yes! I can't believe it!
Why are you crying?
We won! We won!
Why are you crying?
It's unbelievable!
I'm just kidding. Hillary won.
Really?
Hillary won.
No. No. Who won, really?
Hillary won.
No. No.
Just kidding. Mr. Donald Trump is the president.
Okay. But still, I'm happy.
I know, that's cool, isn't it? Yeah, he actually beat her pretty bad. I mean, not crazy bad, but a lot worse than people thought.
خب دوستان به برنامه مادر و کودک خوش آمدید. در این برنامه توجه ما صرفاً بر واکنش‌ها و اون چیزی که در منزل و خانه‌های شما در این چند روز گذشته یا پس از انتخابات آقای دونالد ترامپ به عنوان پرزیدنت الکت بوده هستش. امروز بحث بسیار پرباری داریم در رابطه با اینکه واکنش یا شیوه برخورد ما چه به صورت به اصطلاح برنده چه به صورت بازنده با بچه هامون در خانواده هامون در کامیونیتیمون به چه صورت میتونه باشه. و خب میدونم که در این روزها هیجان و یا پروتست و به اصطلاح انتقاد و اون تنشی که بین کسانی که مخالف آقای ترامپ هستند بسیار هستش، به خصوص اینجا در کالیفرنیا که میدونیم همیشه خیلی ما به عنوان یک شهروند کالیفرنیایی خیلی بیشتر دموکرات، بیشتر لیبرال و بیشتر پروگرسیو بودیم و فکر میکنم برای خیلی از ماها، برای خود من میدونم این واقعی بود. اون لحظه ای که به عنوان یک شهروند کالیفرنیایی متوجه شدیم که واقعا آقای دونالد ترامپ، پرزیدنت دونالد ترامپ قرار هستن که پرزیدنت ما بشن و درست مثل این بود که یک بمب اتم جلوی من منفجر شد و من داشتم میدیدم اون آرزوها، اون شاید فانتزی ها، اون ولیو، ارزش ها و باورهایی که همیشه خیلی عمقاً به صورت عمیق بهش باور داشتم و فکر میکردم که واو این میتونه یک الکشنی باشه که برای اولین بار شاید یک زن رئیس جمهور آمریکا میشه. خیلی از ارزش‌ها و باورهایی که من فکر می‌کردم شاید مهم باشه و برای پیشرفت ما، برای پیس لرنینگ در رابطه با به اصطلاح پیشبرد اون معیارهای لیبرال ما مهم باشه، اینا همه به صورت در یک چند ثانیه برای من به اصطلاح annihilated، منفجر شد و از بین رفت. و در اون به اصطلاح فنا، در اون فضای فنا من بقایی رو شخصا تجربه کردم و اون بقا به این معنا بود که همکنون این به ما یک فرصتی میده، به من مادر یا به من یک شاید شهروند کالیفرنیایی که دوست دارم در راه صلح و آموزش صلح و صلح آموزی و صلحجویی و صلح‌خویی فعالیت کنم. این فرصت طلایی هست که در این بحران ما اقدام بکنیم، با مسئولیت رفتار بکنیم، بیشتر انرژی بذاریم، بیشتر توجه بذاریم و اون کارهایی رو که شاید خیلی عادی میدونستیم به صورت فورس ماژورتر، به صورت جدیتر دنبال بکنیم و پشتش بریم و اونجا باشیم و بیستیم و این موومنت به هیچ عنوان جلوش ایست به وجود نیومده، بلکه این موومنت یک انرژی و یک فورس ماژوری بهش اضافه شده شده که برای من امروزه خیلی امیدوار کننده هستش و امیدوارم که پرزیدنت ترامپ واقعا موفق باشن و اون کارهایی رو که اقدامهایی رو که دارن و کارهایی که انجام میدن برای صلح و برای آوردن بهبودی به اصطلاح این جامعه و کشورمون واقعا در آمریکا خوب باشه و در ایران. برای خیلی از ما شهروندانی که ایرانی آمریکایی هستیم یا آمریکایی ایرانی هستیم، من فکر می‌کنم همیشه اون بهبودی یا خوبی کشورمون مهم هستش. می‌خوایم بدونیم که پرزیدنت دونالد ترامپ برای ایران چه میکنه، برای آمریکا چه میکنه و آیا میتونه در این مسیر با صلح و صلح بیشتری تصمیم بگیره و اقدام بکنه و آیا ما روبرو خواهیم بود با جنگ‌های بیشتری و تنش‌های بیشتری و چالش‌های بیشتری. این رو فقط زمان به ما جواب خواهد داد. ولی امروزه در این برنامه مام تاک توجه و نیت من روی این هستش که روی conscious parenting صحبت بکنیم. در رابطه با conscious parenting الان از به اصطلاح سیزن جدید مام تاک امسال توجه و تمرکز من فقط رو این بوده که این revolution، این انقلاب، این تحول، این موومنتی که در خانواده ها داره اتفاق میفته، این رو بهش بچسبیم. چرا که از خانواده شروع میشه همه این چیزا. اون بچه‌ای که خوشحاله یا خوشحال نیست از بردن ترامپ یا بردن هیلاری دونالد ترامپ یا هیلاری کلینتون، این بخشیش برمیگرده به اون وابستگی یا دلبستگی یا شیوه برخورد مادر و پدر اون کودک در رابطه با اون شاید گرایش. و خب خیلی مهم هستش که این مبحث رو باز بکنیم، ببینیم که ما به عنوان یک conscious parenting educator، به عنوان یک کسی که در این مسیر قدم میذاریم، پا میذاریم، برنامه تهیه میکنیم و صحبت ها و کانورسیشن ها رو دنبال میکنیم و ادامه میدیم، چه میتونیم بکنیم. امروز مهمان گرامی برنامه من خانم روما کترپال هستند. Dearest Roma, welcome to Mom Talk once again. It's such a pleasure and joy to have you. And I can't wait to start this dialogue, this conversation regarding conscious parenting as it relates to living with as is and the post-election experiences for many families in our homes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nelly. It's such an important conversation, right? It seems that the adults are in mayhem and we've dragged our kids into it, as we always do.
Yes.
So, here we are, right? The dynamic of what's happening. The results are in. This is the future. This is the way we're moving. Now this big angst on how do we manage the kids and how are parents going to, first digest it themselves. And I think that is the key right there. Just like any other form of any other issue or challenge that we have in parenting, if we are able to self-manage, if we are able to manage our own emotions, if we are able to manage ourselves and put it in perspective, tied into our true goodness, tied into the core of who we are as human beings, not as belonging to a party or another, but as human beings, because those are the core values that we want to give our kids.
Right. Yeah, speaking of core values, so I noticed myself, so there was a moment of despair, I have to say, where I really saw many of my core values shattered in seconds, just shattered. I was explaining in Farsi earlier that it felt like an atomic bomb just had gone off and in front of me, and I'm witnessing and I'm watching, and at the core, are all my core values. And so in the midst of that, all of that, then I quickly was able to pull myself back into the being state, and realizing that, wow, like this is such an opportunity, right? This is like an awakening. Oh my gosh, like it's true, I've been annihilated in many ways, but I've also there's a rebirth, there's a rejuvenation, there's a awakening, and oh my God, then I started to get excited about it. And so it was this dual dance, this yin yang, the death and life, that cycle, that connection that brought me to the conversation, to the table, to connect, to want to connect, and now share this experience with our children.
Right.
And you know, in our home, we were divided. I've been, you know, open about this. So my husband, he voted for President Trump. So you can imagine within one household having this duality, this conversation, this, you know, as is living, and to also want to be true and honest and real, and to not disconnect from my feelings, my own feelings, as well as allowing children to have their own feelings about this, not as an extension to, you know, who I am and who, you know, my husband is. I think that was challenging, but also I have to say we as a family experienced the most growth out of this working through process.
And that's the whole point, right? Imagine, you know, this is a great example because you are a testament, a living testament to this, right? To this division that stands, you know, before the announcement of the results. So if we look back at the whole theory of united we stand, you know, if we're divided in our home to begin with, and that's fine, that's part of life, individuals being divided in their opinions and their likes and dislikes, and this is a good sort of reflection on well, I shouldn't say reflection, but this is a good example for the kids to know that whether it's my brother, my sister, my spouse, what have you, you know, that we might be divided in our opinions at some point. But I think that where we failed our children, if you will, because, you know, we hear that there's so much angst. In fact, Steve Zimmer, the president of the board at LAUSD, when he spoke, you know, he also advocated that the parents come together on this so that it would help. It would help the schools and vice versa. What the schools were doing to minimize those fears and to quieten the children, to address their fears and then to quieten down the chaos that they had. And I think that it's because we never entertained in our homes with our children if we belong to a certain party. So what happens if the other wins? What happens if the other loses? I truly believe that the prep wasn't there. If we had some prep with our children in telling them that if Trump wins, then this is what we should expect. Everybody's going to be upset. And it doesn't, I mean, we really don't know exactly what to expect, but at least giving them that education. And again, you know, when the emotions are lifted, when the emotions are, the volume of the emotions are turned up, then engaging the intellect is so important to help bring perspective to those emotions. And educating our children ahead of time that if Trump loses, this is how we're going to end up feeling. It's not mean this is the end of the world. When situations like this happen, then we have to look at something's good got to come out of this, you know, and move forward in that direction. So I feel we might have failed our children a little bit in that preliminary education. And of course, when it comes to straight up what has happened and what you know, half of America, isn't it fair to say, because you had all of America in your home, Nelly?
We did. We sure did. And the process was beautiful to me. You know, at the kids' school, they go to an independent school, they had this whole election process for several weeks where, you know, they created their voting booths. They were talking about their choices, voting, of course, on the election day, talking about the aftermath. So I feel like some educational systems, you know, they included the conversation. But I think the place where it gets a little tricky is that we live in California. And so as California, we're living in a very, you know, democratic, liberal, I mean, these schools that I know of who did this mock election sort of process, 75 to 80% of students ranging, you know, voted for Hillary. So then we have the challenge of how do we deal in a community with promoting, cultivating empathy and compassion for the minority. So the minority for us here living in California are the Republicans, are the ones who elected President Donald Trump. And so how do we come alongside each other and connect in a meaningful way, in a compassionate way, and listen and hear each other's sort of pains and heartbreaks and suffering, but also celebrate the perfect union, the basis of this country, you know, this unification of both parties and coming together and uniting each other. So it is a very beautiful opportunity and conversation where I feel personally, that's what I meant by I've never felt so much growth in our family. And by this election, you know, I really experienced tremendous growth, and I'm hopeful that moving beyond these, you know, protests and everything that is happening following the president-elect.
How did you feel it in your own home? I'd love to know.
Yes, yes. So starting with our own homes and really staying true to what it's like to be a conscious parent.
Yeah. So starting in your home, you know, considering the different age groups that you have, how did you put this in perspective with your children?
So it was through education, you know, educating them about the basis of democracy, how each one of us has a preference. We have certain likes and dislikes, and we have certain core values and beliefs, and to have those conversations, to feel that me and you are both seen and we're heard and we're validated and given a space to have a conversation.
Okay.
And by modeling that. So when I'm curious to know why my husband is interested or curious about this way of leading the country, I think I am modeling to our children that it's really healthy, it's good to lean in and be curious and want to know. It's those times when, for example, when President Donald Trump will make a harsh statement or say something that is not aligned with my belief, let's just say, that I have to say, well, you know, that's just, that's different. It's different. It is what, it's as is, right? It's accepting as is, and that's different.
Yes.
It is hurtful. It is, so again, describing it so that they understand why. And, you know, I went as far as saying to them that, okay, sometimes in marketing skills,
Yeah.
you know, people choose, like, they make these decisions that doesn't make sense, but they win. They get the votes, you know, they get their goal met. And so why not, you know, as is, let's talk about that piece as well. And so it would be great.
It would lesson for the children, right? Because I mean, this is a classic example of how many times in life we try for something, we root for something, and it doesn't happen.
Right.
So this is a very nice parallel. It's a very live parallel to any life situation, and how we can handle it. Clearly, there were morals and ethics that didn't align with the well-being of our children, and even our children were able to see some of that very clearly. But now that we are here, what do we do now? You know, and taking that analogy into what happens to a friend that you don't like. What happens to a president that you're electing within your classroom, within your school? And what happens when somebody that you did not vote for, somebody you do not favor, ends up in that position? What do? You know, you're still part of the school. You're not going to get up and quit and leave the school and leave the country. Now, when we take it into leaving the country, this was a big fear of many of the immigrants, is what's going to happen to me. And again, I think that all the fears that the children had that are being voiced are truly a reflection of the parents' voices.
Yes.
And the angst that the parents went through themselves, and hence put the kids through, and decided to include the kids. Now, this was a big thing. This was one of the, you know, very first elections where there was a lot of family involvement.
Yes.
You know, families and children of all ages. In fact, one of my friends posted on Facebook a picture of her son in the father's lap and her husband's lap watching the election, and he said, Mom, why is everybody voting for the bad guy? And the bad guy, right? And she said, well, this is the reason why we want all of you to go to school. So there was so many different reasons that were brought forth by parents to this.
Yes.
And then if you look at the young adults you know, and I'll take an example of my nieces and nephews who are tweens, one 8-year-old and then 2 tweens, and one actually just entered teenagehood. She's going to watch this and say, I'm not a tween, and she isn't. But my point is, you know, they looked to my age group children. You know, my kids are 25 and 28. They looked to them on, what do you think? What was their response? And I have to say, our young adults didn't behave that well. You know, I had to even sit down and talk to my kids and say, okay, what kind of an example are we setting for the children? Because that's an age that's completely free and clear of parental guidance. You know, they're making their opinions, they're acting the way they think is appropriate. And my daughter was showing me what her Facebook feed looked like, what her Twitter feed, Instagram feed looked like within her age group, and the words and the curse words and the angst that was within that age group really is not a good example for our teenagers, because our teenagers will turn to them before they will turn to us to see what they're saying.
That's right.
How they're responding. So I think this was so multi-level as far as setting an example for the kids. We really, I mean, this needed to be sharpened up before. We knew this was going to happen. We knew that the possibility was there. And if most of us had our blinders on and didn't think so a month ago or 2 months ago or what have you, we knew 48 hours in advance, you know, as the elections were starting to happen, and especially in that last 24 hours. So I think that this is a big learning lesson for parents to talk to the kids when you anticipate something like that happen, not getting caught in the angst, and really starting to prepare the children as to, okay, this might be a possibility. Let's talk about how everyone else is going to act. How am I going to feel? How are you going to feel? So that you sort of prepare the children a little ahead of time.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of issues there. As far as it being a possibility, I think the possibility was very slim. So those of us who kind of overestimate, you know, we were very hopeful and dreaming and hoping for a different outcome. But right on, I think as far as you know, being in that mode where we're preventing or we're looking ahead and we're planning ahead and we're being more prepared and more, and also it's an opportunity now for us to have a conversation about it, because through these conversations and the learning experiences that we have now, we can pass this on and we can extend this consciousness to our children and the youth and the younger generation. Let's watch a clip together. This is a little girl who's with perhaps a young adult uncle or brother, and she's Muslim. She's of Muslim faith, and it's just very interesting, the interaction they have together, and how she's processing her feelings and how she feels about the election. So let's watch this together and we'll come back and discuss it.
I'm gonna put on hat. Alright guys, so I'll put this on my head because Rima just made me feel insecure and just dissed me out.
Look at his hair.
Give me my hat, bro. Give me my
Even hat.
Okay, gosh, man. Rima. Donald Trump is not president. 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 Rima, don't be sad. I love you. Who do you want? Hillary?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Hillary
going.
Clinton.
Rima, I have a surprise for you, okay? All right? I got you something. Sit down first. I got you this. It's a toy.
Really?
What?
Dinosaur saw.
It's a crocodile.
Okay, so what do you think, Roma, from what you just saw?
You know, I have to tell you, I don't know if the audio was turned off or I couldn't hear it, but I didn't get the audio part of it, but I don't think I needed it with, it was clear. You know, she's 5, right? Where do you think she's getting her information? And where do you think the angst is coming from? Is everything that was discussed in and around her, in the home and around the home. And the very first step is to go into dealing with the feeling. You know, really helping spot the feeling, saying it out loud, and then validating it. So spot it, say it, okay, and validating the feelings with the little children. And in this case, clearly, they're not happy. This girl, she's 5. She's not happy. She doesn't even know what this means on a larger scale of life. So honestly, I'd love to talk to this parent and to see how they handled it. And I hope they're watching so that they know that when we plant these seeds in our children, giving them a box of cookies might make them happy at that moment, but that angst is going to show up in their behavior at some point somewhere else. So addressing our children, addressing their feelings, addressing their emotions, how they're thinking about this, what are they thinking? Are you feeling angry? Are you frustrated? Are you mad? Are you hurt? Are you sad? Really building their emotional vocabulary and applying emotional intelligence to this. And then going from there to, okay, we are safe. We are okay. Because what uproots children is the feeling of not feeling safe. And really getting into the seed of letting our children know that these sorts of things have happened many, many times before. Now, you can't explain that to a 5-year-old if we're talking about this example specifically, but you can definitely help validate their feelings and help them dissolve those feelings, and even perhaps telling them that, I'm okay. And I'm sorry if I made it out that I wasn't. I know I was upset before. I was upset during the elections. I know that the TV was on the whole time. Let's just be done with that. And turning off technology until the children are back to their routine, getting them back into their routine. So many things that we can do to help children, help them back to their center, because obviously this child is completely derailed because of what happened around her.
Right. And it's those healthy boundaries that we, as conscious parents, reinforce and we reiterate that the most loving thing that we can do as conscious parents with our children is to establish or reinforce or hold those boundaries. And so in the conversation, if we feel as a parent that the child is reacting to fear or being fearful or experiencing fear because of what the child is exposed to, then creating healthier boundaries to reassure them, to help them feel safe. I think this was a tricky election because many of those statements, like with this little girl, she's a Muslim, and I'm sure the conversations that she's been exposed to regarding, banning Muslims or, just really building walls or not allowing a Muslim American to live a normal life, those messages, I think, fuels the fear. And so for good reason, you have these families who are afraid their family members won't ever be able to visit them because of these statements that were made, or that their families will be deported and separated, and they will no longer have their stable, secure, safe life as usual. And so the reactions that came across from many of these families of immigrant, families of Muslims, families of those who were affected by the racist remarks, by those derogatory remarks, is so then, as an educator, as a conscious parent, how do we work through and move beyond the fear factor and bring more peace and peace learning into the interactions with our children in our communities, at schools? You work with schools.
So back to education, right? Educating our children about the issues, about how many times these sort of things have happened before and how we come out of it. And, obviously this was a tough one for parents, because the words that, our president-elect said actually triggered those fears in the adults. And then those fears trickled down to the children.
Right.
So needless to say, this was not a shot in the dark. This is not something that came out from outer space. These were words and how they were interpreted. Mm-hmm. So explaining to our children about the system itself, that, I spoke to one 9-year-old child, a friend of mine, her son was having a hard time, and I explained to him how there's a board. Because he knew about the board at his school. So I used that same language, that just like at your school, there's a board, because he had talked about the board at school. Just like that, the board helps the president helps the board, and these decisions are made together. They're made jointly, and no one is going to, throw you out or your friends out, because his fear was, I've never been to India, and I'm going to have to go back now. I've never even lived there. So, all these children had so many fears that, again, were trickling down for the parents, but really explain to the children what the system is about. And what the government is about. As you said, in the private sector, and I know of a few also, there was a lot of education that went into this before, during. There were a lot of mock trials and debates that the older children did. But I think really it's up to the parent, because when these things come home, when these reactions, when this aftermath, when this spillover comes home, it is up to the parents to put it in perspective themselves first, and then give children that very, very educated perspective on what the government looks like, what the issues are. Of course, age appropriately. Interestingly enough, we took our kids on this ride. It's like a parent who doesn't really know how to swim really well. I'm talking about the sea of emotions here, that just jumps in the water and takes the child with them. Because now you've got the parent that's gasping and not able to come out of it, and neither are they able to save the child. So going back to that basic foundational rule of, first equip yourself, come out of this yourself, come out of it strong, come out of it intelligently, manage your own emotions, and then age appropriately do the same with your children. And if you need to reach out for help, to the educators at school, there, at least at LAUSD, a lot of education since this event has gone into the school systems. So yeah, turn back, find a network, find friends that are involved in politics, and really talking about those boundaries and guidelines, surround yourself with a network that can help support you and your child.
Yeah, and I love when Dr. Shefali talks about in life, we're faced with two choices, right? It really boils down to simple two ways of being. One, that things happen for us, or the other, things happen to us. And it's really that simple shift, and also passing this wisdom on to our children, that in any situation, whether it's the elections or dealing with aggressive behavior at school, or having issues in a friendship or relationship, if we have this approach or this way of being, when things are happening for us, it's a lot easier to tap into that consciousness awakening and self-growth, personal growth experience. And the only way, perhaps.
It is the only way. It is the only way, because really teaching this is such a great platform for growth for ourselves and for our children, and really showing them that the duality in life, the positive and the negative, and the yin and the yang. I mean, everything that we talk about, the dichotomy, and how do we handle these things when we're in the midst of it. And when it comes to very young children, going back to that, that 5-year-old specifically, really teaching them breathing techniques on, okay, let's take a deep breath, and this feeling will pass. And because, for a 5-year-old, giving them an explanation of consciousness might be tough.
Right.
So for them, we can actually pull them into consciousness. We can pull them into mindfulness by saying, okay, let's take a deep breath, let's follow our breath, and see these feelings, they come and they go. They're like waves, they will pass us by. This is not who you are, it's just what you're feeling. I was feeling the same way too. Let's just breathe this away. And again, going back to that meditation, the core of who we are, and guiding our children, helping them through this transition, which some kids are taking harder than others. But again, I'll repeat this, I think that this is all a mirror of what the parents are feeling. This is a mirror of what happened in the household during those times.
Yeah, and this could potentially be an opportunity for children to not only internalize more of consciousness or peace learning, or their way of dealing with conflict in a more peaceful way, but also experientially get first-hand experience of what it's like for their friend, perhaps, or someone they know, to be facing this type of fear, or to be facing dialogues and conflicts, and it's more real. It's beyond fantasy or a place of thought. It's now entered our consciousness or collective consciousness in a very real way, where you can't escape it. The protests, you turn on the TV and you see the protesters. You see these real conversations about core values, what our country is, the heart of this country is beating for and moving forward. How do we lead, in terms of our nation and the world, our global place? And so these conversations are now very real. They're very, very much part of our being and our consciousness.
I've always said that in order for us to know who we truly are, we have to first experience who we're not.
Yes.
So when we experience who we're not, then the clarity of who we want to be or who we truly are becomes it magnifies.
Right on.
And really telling the children that this is now clear to us. And it's brought a lot of clarity to us adults. I think this has been quite shocking for all of us to just think of like, wow, that was half the country. That was half the country divided in half. So half of us supported one party and the other half the other. And again, this right here is the collective consciousness that we talk about. This is a great education of what happens inside of us. And when we get these opportunities to express it outwardly, then it really is coming up for healing.
And isn't there also a parallel experience now with, for example, hunger? We know about half of the world, is full, and half of the world is hungry. Half of the world is young, and half of the world is aging. So there seems to be this relationship, this duality, in how our consciousness, the collective consciousness, is experienced.
Exactly. And and this, I honestly, my personal belief is this is a great thing. I think that little bit of everyone's waking up in the morning or staying up late at night, which was me, staying up late at night to see where we would end up, just entering that moment with, okay, well, it is what it is. And I know that this is for the positive. And this is a great example to share with the kids, asking them, haven't you always been taken care of? Hasn't the universe, God, or whatever it is that you believe in, whatever faith you believe in, if you want to touch on that, just know that you're always taken care of, and you always will be.
Yeah.
And this is just a revelation for us. This is an awakening for all of us not to really dive in, because what's happened for those of us that are strong in our core values and we're a little shocked by this, knowing that this doesn't align with our core values and what we want to give to the children, we then spilled over big time as well. Like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? What's going to happen now? The country is doomed. And that's so not the case. That's so not the case. This is all for a higher purpose. It's for the collective good. Let's see what we do in the next 4 years, maybe 8. We don't know, right? Let's see what happens in the next 4 years. Let's observe. Let's watch. Let's not throw ourselves in the cesspool. And let's not dirty ourselves up and take our kids there with us. Let's just stand outside of this and let them do their job. Let them do what they need to do, and it is what it is, and it's accepting the as is and accepting the present moment and moving on, and still making sure that you have your value system intact. You have your value system in place. And when you touched on having other children that talk to your children about this and creating that angst amongst children and letting your kids know that, you know what, I respect how you believe, what you believe. And that's your choice and that's your take. And I'm okay with it, but this is what I believe in. And teaches children also to stand up for themselves,
right,
and to hang on to their core values and to really know who they are, and not to use that as then a foundation or a platform for more chaos,
right,
for more angst, which many of us have done. A lot of adults have done that, and social media is a classic example of that. There's mourning, protests. I know somebody who's been ill, that who's actually been an adult, a 43-year-old adult who's actually been ill in bed since this happened and has 3 children. So you think about what sort of impact that has on the children.
Right, right. Certainly on many levels, many families have been impacted by this. And I know for conscious parents who are really genuinely committed to being real and being in touch with those good quality, good human quality variables, values and beliefs and core values. The dilemma or the conflict, at least for me and my family, has been when President Donald Trump elect, when in the past or during the debates and election process, when he's made such strong statements against good, the well-being of humankind, and it's just across the board. And so,
Yeah.
so if there was any effort, if President Trump at any point, I believe, is able to come out and repair and make sense out of those statements for those of us who were just completely shocked and just could not believe it. I think especially for the children, if he really believes in doing good for the children of America, I believe making an effort to repair and say, what he really needs to say, to apologize, to perhaps make it better, So he did what he had to do to get elected, and now that he's elected, now that he's in place, he's in leadership, he's the president of the United States of America, what are you going to do to really heal some of those wounds that you personally are responsible for? Now, I understand the tactics and the strategies and everything that was done to get to the goal and so forth. But now that you're there, Mr. President, Donald Trump, what are you willing to do? What efforts are you willing to take to repair and engage in this peace learning effort to heal our nation, to bring us together? And that only time will tell, right? I think only time will tell.
Exactly. And again, I think that some of that has already started. As you know, in the last couple of talks, some of that has already started. So I'm hoping that, like you, I'm really hoping that we will go in that direction, and yet not expecting it.
Sure.
So, I think that what we have control over as parents is the healing that we can do for our children in our homes.
Right.
And really build up that core again, strengthen them again, have them go inwards, teaching them about letting these feelings pass, about life, about perspective, education, boundaries and guidelines. I think we've covered a lot in this talk today, and really coming back to center. And other than that, just letting it go and letting children now go on with their daily lives. And yes, Nelly, it is our hope and our prayer that that some of that might happen on its own. But I think no expectations is the best way to move forward.
I agree. We can only hope, pray, meditate, have an open heart, and just continue on our path. Our path has not changed. Our path has, in my opinion, become more exciting, more interesting, it's widened. The linkages are happening already as we speak, and our path is stronger than ever. And so it is an awakening. It's a growth experience. We're all in it together. We stand united together.
Yes, we have grown so much as a nation because of this. So in that alone, we have to thank him, right?
All right, let's watch another clip, children reacting to President Donald Trump elect. Let's watch and we'll be back.
You know how there was the election yesterday? Who did you want to win?
Hillary Clinton, not him.
So Donald Trump won and he is the next president.
What? run our country.
What? I know. I saw it this morning.
What?
Are you crying? Are you okay? Devin, are you in shock?
Just imagine everything that could happen now. We probably have to move to another country.
It'll be okay. And as long as we're together, then that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It will be okay as long as we're together. The last words of this wise mom and their family grieving, processing the pain of what it's like to think about their family members being deported, being separated. And it is our duty, our social responsibility to make sure that those conversations are moving towards a place where healing is taking place, safety, reassurance that these children feel safe, like you said, Roma, that these children feel like they have a voice, they have advocates and people who are going to stand with them and not let their families split apart.
United we stand, right? That's the most important.
Roma, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you everyone for watching this episode post-elections on Mom Talk and engaging in this conversation. دوستان این برنامه‌ای بود که صرفاً در رابطه با ارتقاء آگاهی در conscious parenting و اون خودآگاهی و نگاه جدیدی که ما میتوانیم پس از انتخابات در رابطه با خانواده، در رابطه با کودکان و رفتارهایی که از ما قراره به اصطلاح انجام بشه، صورت بگیره، صحبت‌هایی که قراره انجام بشه، صورت بگیره و چگونه میتونیم در این مسیر باز هم قدمی به سوی صلح آموزی و پرورش صلح در جامعهمون، در خانواده و در زندگیمون داشته باشیم. تا هفته آینده روزگار خوش و خدا نگهدار.